Now, across Texas, the issue is...
I'm Rudy Koski in Austin.
I'm Greg Grugan in Houston.
And I'm Stephen Dial in Dallas. And this is Texas, the issue is.
A statewide poll was recently released just a few days ago, and in it, a majority of Texans who responded said they were satisfied with how the 2024 elections were run. But the poll also found that there is strong support for several election reform ideas being considered by state lawmakers right here in Austin, like requiring proof of citizenship in order to register to vote. State Senator Brian Hughes is among those to file legislation regarding proof of citizenship. He spoke to me about his bill, SB 309.
The law requires that only U.S. citizens can vote in U.S. elections. However, to register to vote, you're not required to show proof of citizenship. The feds have not let the states do that. There's a federal bill moving that would require proof of U.S. citizenship to vote, but we're not waiting for Washington. Our bill says to register to vote in Texas, you need to show proof of U.S. citizenship. It's pretty basic. Most people agree that only U.S. citizens have the right to vote in U.S. elections, but remarkably, there's opposition to requiring proof of citizenship to register. That's what this bill's about.
On the voter registration cards right now, there's a box that says, I am a U.S. citizen. You're supposed to check that. Why isn't that enough?
The difference is showing proof. Let me see a birth certificate, a passport. As you know, to get a driver license in Texas, for years now, you've been required to show proof of citizenship, a birth certificate, a passport, something like that. We need that same requirement for voter registration. Every year we clean the voter rolls and we find non-citizens who are registered to vote in Texas, and that doesn't make sense.
On a somewhat related issue, the administration, the Trump administration, is trying to change how birthright citizenship is interpreted.
As a federal judge in Seattle put a temporary block on his executive order ending birthright citizenship.
The United States became the most powerful, most prosperous nation on earth, not in spite of immigrants, but because of them.
Some legal analysts say taking away birthright citizenship is a long shot.
The Trump administration is really the underdog. The odds are strongly against it prevailing.
Are you worried that that case could affect your bill?
We definitely have to watch both of them. That right to vote is a precious privilege of U.S. citizens, and so determining who's entitled to U.S. citizenship will have a lot to do with who has a right to vote. So they're both important. We have to watch them both.
Is there an objection? Hearing none.
How soon could this come up?
So the bill is filed and referred to the Senate Committee on State Affairs, where election matters go. We plan to have a hearing on this bill within the next couple of weeks, so it should be moving quickly.
Yeah, a lot of stuff is moving quickly out of the Senate. Now, I anticipate a spirited debate when SB 309 gets a hearing in the State Affairs Committee, and if this bill is sent to the Senate floor, which is why my word for this interview is cross-check. Greg, what's your word?
Oh, Rudy, like you often do, I'm playing fast and loose with the one-word rule and going with the acronym SCOTUS.
Stephen, your word.
Red meat.
It sure is. All right, the Texas Trio will be back in a moment to discuss proof of citizenship legislation. All right, welcome back to The Issue Is. And the issue for us right now, state lawmakers expected to debate legislation that will require proof of citizenship to register to vote in Texas. Now, those who are opposed to that kind of legislation argue there's no evidence of rampant voter fraud in Texas. But a Harris County judge last spring did overturn a 2022 judicial election after he concluded more than 1,400 illegal votes had been counted. And a check of the statewide voter rolls last year did find non-citizens registered on those voter rolls, although the big number first reported, they had to walk that back some. Greg, Houston certainly seems to be ground zero for the vote fraud fight.
Yeah, no question, Rudy, but a lot of that trepidation following two disastrously run local elections has dissipated after Republicans at the state capitol essentially banned the appointed election administrator post in Harris County. A development which fortunately returned a highly competent elected Democrat county clerk to the helm. In fact, local GOP leaders here openly praised the integrity of the process in the 2024 election. Look, fresh polling that I know you're going to talk about from the Hobby School tells us a 91% portion of the Texas population believes their elections were run well or somewhat well. And it's fair to say that number wouldn't be near that high if there was widespread fear that voter fraud was taking place. My point being, we are in a much different place as a state and a country than we were post-2020 election. Which reminds me, maybe President Trump, now that he's in office, can produce the definitive slam dunk proof of the big steal that simply failed to emerge year after year, despite all of the apoplectic cheating allegations that continue to this day. And maybe the Doge super teens can get that assignment next, because frankly, I still haven't seen any rock solid proof.
Yeah, and you're right, that confidence level in the hobby poll really was an eye-opener. But, you know, that poll also noticed that 86% of those who responded support proof of citizenship registering to vote. But 70% also like the idea of online voter registration. So there's a little cross-checking certainly going on, which is the reason for my word earlier. Stephen, is this a case of just some mixed messaging, or a call for modernization?
I think this is a call for the word that I said at the end of our A block. It's red meat. Let's look at it. And bouncing off of what Greg said, just mysteriously, Republicans aren't talking about voter fraud because they swept Congress and the White House. Now there's no voter fraud because there was no widespread voter fraud. We've talked about this ad nauseum about these allegations, and then when there are reviews, there's no proof of widespread voter fraud. I think that poll is citing what people truly feel. Yes, people want proof of citizenship because that's a requirement. You're supposed to be a citizen. But I don't think it goes to the extent of a bill, a law needing to be passed to prove that. And so that's why I said this is red meat, just because that has been a talking point by Republicans, just like Democrats have their share of talking points that we are critical of as well. And then the online voter registration is something that some other states do. Why isn't Texas doing it? With these fears by some lawmakers, there likely won't be online registration because, how can you prove that you're a citizen online?
Yeah, checks and balances. That's always the devil in the detail. Adding a show proof of citizenship requirement to voter registration in place of checking the declaration box, that could hamper voter registration drives. That goes on all across the state, especially in college campuses. And those who are opposed to the federal bill known as the SAVE Act, which Senator Hughes mentioned, claim that this idea could make it even harder for married women to vote because a birth certificate typically does not match their current legal name. Greg, it's going to be interesting to see if these bills get amended or if we're going to court.
Rudy, with majorities in both the Texas Senate and the Texas House, Republicans only have to take amendments if they're feeling charitable. I know it's hard for Democrats to hear, but it's reality. Elections have consequences. I'm not sure Republican leaders even care if Democrats accuse them of suppressing votes. Their attitude is, if you're qualified to vote, get your crap together like everyone else. If you don't have appropriate ID, get it. And then take advantage of a generous number of early voting days to exercise your rights. Rights, including the right to vote, come with basic responsibilities. Like the polling says, 9 out of 10 Texans believe possessing and presenting proof of citizenship is not too much to ask.
Stephen, real quickly, I noticed that there's some other proof of citizenship stuff attached to things like auto insurance, getting that, and even buying real estate. More just red meat or real stuff?
I think it's a genuine concern from some people with, the age of AI and deception. I understand the innocence and the concern from some. I just think certain politicians happen to be taking advantage of that innocent concern.
Okay, we'll end the discussion with that.
When the Fox Texas Trio returns, we're talking the property tax relief that millions of homeowners in Texas really want. Welcome back. With $24 billion surplus dollars in the bank and a governor who has once again declared property tax relief an emergency legislative item, Houston State Senator Paul Bettencourt is looking to further boost the so-called Homestead Exemption from school taxes with a measure bearing the moniker SB 4.
It's part of the moral responsibility that we have to keep seniors in their homes.
Houston State Senator Paul Bettencourt, poised to deliver property tax relief to hard-pressed Texas homeowners, by once again raising the Homestead Exemption on school district levies.
It raises the school homestead exemption by 40% to a record $140,000. And that cuts through all the formulas right to your tax bill and saves you $363 forever, effectively, on that, on your ISD property tax bill. But wait, we're not done yet, because we're going to also compress tax rates at the same time. We're going to lower the M&O rate on schools. That'll save you another $133. So we're looking at $496. And my Aggie math says $500 is real money for the average homeowner across the state.
The nearly $3 billion proposal, funded via the state's surplus, has drawn heavy support from advocates for the elderly, who calculate the additional relief will alleviate 80% of Texas senior homeowners from paying a penny in school tax.
After you've paid a lifetime of taxes, how do you stay in your home? Well, the way to do it is we've had a series of reforms, but more importantly, we get that homestead exemption up to the right amount with the tipping point, and they testified that it would take 80 to 90% of the over 65s off the school tax roll permanently. And that's really what we need to do, because we got a moral responsibility to help with affordable housing anyway. But I think a real moral responsibility to keep seniors in their homes. And that's what SB4 will do.
Betancourt contends the substantial homestead exemption bump will help allow thousands of first-time home buyers to cross the challenging threshold to affordability.
A new homeowner, like at $335,000, which is the average in the state, they get relief immediately, and it stays with them over the entire time they own the home. And then wherever they go, which is what the realtors were saying, that homestead exemption's there at their next home and at their next home, and it always pays off for them.
The senator also contends those who advocate slicing levies by dropping tax rates rather than boosting exemptions would shortchange homeowners over the long run.
Homestead exemptions are like 3.5 times more efficient of getting money directly into homeowners for 5.7 million homeowners in the state than just trying to do straight, hey, let's reduce the tax rate. They're a tremendously powerful tool, and they give a huge payout for X number of $1 billion. We can lower everybody's taxes by $363. It's literally 3 times of what for about the same amount of money that what was budgeted for rate cuts, and it's direct tax relief.
Other critics of SB4 argue that the only genuine path to lasting relief requires state-mandated caps on a home's appraised value. Betancourt fiercely disagrees.
What an appraisal cap does is, after values have gone up, well, you get a little relief temporarily up here. But if you want to affect the tax bill, you get the exemption up as high as possible, because that means 5.7 million homeowners just don't pay that tax. And that's why when you flip over on the backside of your tax bill, you can see the school taxes have come down in 5 years over 50%, and they're going to keep coming down as these reforms are approved by the public. The other thing is, the public loves a homestead exemption increase. They vote for it 83%, 86%, 87%, pick a number. It's not just we're bipartisan in the Senate. The public understands that increasing homestead exemptions is a good thing, and they'll vote for it en masse in November.
As for the vocal minority calling for a complete abolition of property taxes, Betancourt insists sole reliance on a vastly inflated sales tax is simply idiotic public policy and a recipe for economic disaster.
Because you'd have to replace $86 billion with one revenue source, and that means the state's share is 22%. But wait, we're not done. You got to put the local taxes on top of it, so it'd be 24%, and that is 2.5 times more than anywhere else in the United States. That's a weird economy where people would be buying everything they could from Arkansas, Louisiana, Oklahoma, Mexico, New Mexico, Any place but Texas. Jacking up sales taxes 24% is a fantasy. It's not real, and it'd be horrible for the economy.
Okay, guys, SB4 offers the average Texas homeowner roughly $500 worth of permanent property tax relief. Stephen Betancourt calls this solid progress, if not perfection. And like last session, he's got bipartisan support.
Well, yeah, I think Democrats and Republicans will definitely agree on anything that will save them money and also their constituents, because it makes them look good. It also shows that they are able and willing to work together on at least a couple of things in Austin. Now, the senator said a lot of numbers, and some people may have gotten lost in that, and I know that's his job, his committee, and that's how the sausage is made. What the homeowner is really caring about is, man, with all these rising costs, how can I save money? What are y'all doing for me? And so regardless of what the plan is, I think it'd be a win if it saves people money. Now, the question about $500, is it a perfect plan, perfect solution? We'll have to wait and see how that shakes out. And then something that Lieutenant Governor and other Republicans and some Democrats have been critical about is counties and cities doing things that kind of just cut off any tax relief at the knees when it comes to property taxes. And so we'll have to see what the details look like, but constituents, all they care about is how much can you save me?
No doubt. Rudy, the appraisal reform gang is raising holy hell on social media, claiming any benefit from Betancourt's bill gets swallowed up by unbridled home valuations perpetrated by greedy local governments and their appraisal districts. Do they have a point? And more importantly, do they have serious support in the House?
Well, first of all, listening to the senator, I was torn between, that was either my old economics professor for high school or my old high school football coach. The speech, it was just like, wow, which one is this? He's very, very, very passionate, right? As to your question, it's not a point, it is a fact. And that reality has played out over and over and over again the past several years. Look, I agree with the senator. SB4 is historic, and it can initially provide some savings. But while you don't look at, it's an old saying, you don't look at a gift horse in the mouth. But this plan, honestly, is a mule, not a thoroughbred. Here's the problem. As long as local appraisal districts continue to tax property owners on a fictitious number, and it is monopoly money, and what they tell you that you can possibly sell your property for if you want to sell it, increasing things like the Homestead Exemption, it will continue to be eaten up by property valuation estimates that continue to go up in most places. Senator Betancourt truly believes in his plan and other actions that he says will address the appraisal problem and local governments circumventing the caps. But the effort to provide tax hike caps, rollback vote triggers, and changing the makeup of a county appraisal board, it sounds more like voodoo economics and may only be at best a band-aid to a shark bite, at worst a pocketbook pipe dream.
All right, we're going to have to leave it there.
All right, the show is called The Issue Is. When we come back, we'll talk about our issues. We've got issues. Here in North Texas, the issue is Luka Doncic, like the next generation face of the NBA, being traded off to LA for Anthony Davis, who is hurt and is hurt again. Now, you guys further south in Houston and Austin, y'all have a bone to pick about Alex Bregman, right, Greg?
All right, okay, this is bitter beer face by Greg Karugan over the Bregman decision to take a 3-year deal with Boston after the guy he went to war with, first ballot Hall of Famer Jose Altuve, said, "I'll even leave second base and play outfield so we can keep Bregman." Breggy showed no loyalty. He showed loyalty to a buck. And it just really bugs me that Altuve went to the mat to try to continue something special, and this guy accepts a 3-year deal.
Yeah, but Greg, you can't, show me the money. I don't, with any athlete
Really?
saying, show me the money. I don't have a problem with that. Show me the money. But, gosh, this seems to be like a Houston doing to Dallas. You know, Dallas saying we're going to do something stupid, and Houston going, hold my beer, watch this. It was like, my concern is not necessarily with Breggies. My concern is that if Bregman is willing to bail like this, what's wrong in the clubhouse, or what's wrong in the front office?
What's wrong with his agent?
His agent's looking at that money. You know, that's what he's looking at.
Exactly.
But at least, are the wheels coming off in Houston like the wheels have come off in Dallas with the Mavericks and their situation? You know, I don't know which is worse. You know, both is like a train wreck. Both is like that video,
Dallas.
that viral video that everyone saw with the person driving up the car and leaving it on the train tracks and then just getting out of the car and walking away, and the train hit it instead of driving off. You know, what's going on here?
It's killing me, man. I'll get over it. What's going on in Dallas? What's going on in Dallas with the Luka trade? I mean, people are, I love this word, apoplectic. You know, the guy can fill it up. He could fill it up. He was fun to watch. You know, as a 5'11" point guard, it was great to see Luka.
Yeah, and people have been booing Nico Harrison everywhere he goes. He went to an SMU game. The students started chanting, "Fire Nico." He's at a Mavs game. People are chanting, "Fire Nico." Jason Terry had to take some time off, missed a press briefing after the game, and said he just had to personally regroup. So things are going to be okay in Dallas. Are they mad? Should they be mad? Yes, but I think they'll get over it.
All right, that's all the time we have. You can see the interview or any of our past interviews by going to our YouTube pages.
And keep the conversation going by going to our social media platforms.
He is one of the top leaders in Congress when it comes to the Democrat side, and Democrats are at a minority in just about every field. What the House Minority Leader has to say, we'll have that when you join us next week on Texas, The Issue Is. And don't forget to let us know what you think the issue is.